so no one like call the cops on me. Like, I don't need to go to therapy. You have to. Otherwise,
to.
it's
like,
logistically impossible. I don't want to just have kids to like collect kids. You know, they're so cute and you're like, oh, I just love having a little baby and stuff. Turns out we pretty much have the same due date within like days of each other. And she still has abs and I look like I'm like 6 months pregnant. And I don't want to say that to like encourage it to where then the Pace Morby hate club shows up in the comment section of this video. I don't even remember the last time I bleached my teeth. The wives are just... they look like they stepped out of the pages of a Society magazine. And I'm like, I'm not allowed to be here. Yeah, I broke the fourth wall where I've acknowledged someone off camera.
I'm here sharing inspiring stories about fearless entrepreneurial women to help encourage you to live your life unapologetically. I'm your host, Heather Blankenship. Welcome to the Unapologetically Me podcast. On today's episode, I'm talking with Miss Laura Morby. And if you aren't familiar with Laura, she is the wife of Pace Morby. However, she has so many amazing accomplishments that stand on their own. Sometimes that gets shadowed by Pace's fame. We're digging into what it's like to be the wife of somebody like Pace. We're talking about what her interests are and what it's like to put that aside when you're raising babies. It's actually one of my favorite episodes, y'all. So make sure that you stick around for the whole thing. Laura, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so when I was thinking about podcast guests for Phoenix, you came to mind because as much as on the outside looking in, it seems like you and I have very different lives. Mm-hmm. Because as the wife of Pace Morby and staying home with your kids, a lot of people only see that side of you.
Sure, yeah.
And when I was married the first time, my husband was a race car driver and he was really, really good at it. So I became Blankenship's wife. Yeah. And I like drowned in that image.
Sure, yeah.
And I really wanted my own identity. How do you feel being Pace Morby's wife?
Oh my gosh. I think in some ways... I think my issue with not having an identity more comes from being pregnant and having a newborn. But I feel like I've always been more of a loner and behind the scenes type of person. I never wanted to be like the number one friend or the number one person. And I never really sought out the spotlight. And I feel like in a weird way that works out really well for Pace and I because like
he clearly loves it.
Yeah, he gets energy back from it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's... when people say nice things or come up to him and say that he made a difference in their life, like that actually does like really fulfill him. It fills his cup, as you would say. But for me, I feel like this is probably not exactly what you're asking, but there's a whole thing going on with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. And a lot of like how people feel about her, about how she's fake. I think it's because she's taken on the persona of Ryan Reynolds. She's trying to be that funny joke Deadpool type of character and it's not landing.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that when I'm thinking about her, I know Pace isn't Ryan Reynolds, but I've noticed that when people meet me, I think that they want me to be a version of him. Mm-hmm. And we are so completely different. And so I get a lot of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet the Pace Morby's wife. Like, Laura, I've been wanting to meet you. And I think that they project this thing onto me where they want me to have a lot of his same traits. And as they're talking to me, I can like see the joy drain out of their face as they realize like, oh my gosh, she's totally not what I thought. And so it's like almost like I've had to struggle with like, do I lean into that where I'm like making the talking head videos and I'm putting myself out there to be more what I think people want from me? Or do I just do what I think I want to do or how I want to appear? So I don't know if I necessarily feel like I'm lost in the sauce, you know, like with Pace. Like I'm not lost behind him because I don't want it. I don't know. That's so weird. But
so I think in your own respect, you're so freaking interesting. And we have a ton of things in common.
Yeah, we
do.
You
literally had bought like cast iron skillets and you're like, I'm failing. What am I doing wrong?
Me for real.
And I'm like, Laura, here's how you fix it. And you need this cookbook.
Yeah.
And then I've been watching you go to these like cookbook parties.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. I love it. Oh my gosh.
I feel like everyone should do cookbook club.
And whoever your girlfriends are that are doing this,
I know.
They like go all out as if they're a movie.
I know. And it really is like that. It's so funny. I was actually talking to one of them today that...
Okay, wait. So for those who don't know, tell us what Cookbook Club is.
Okay, so Cookbook Club is a lot like book club, but instead of like reading a book and talking about it, we pick a cookbook. We all pick a dish to bring, and then we like make sure, you know, that we plan. So we've got like an appetizer, a drink, a main, you know, couple desserts, and then we all bring it, and then it's styled around the cookbook as well, and then we try to dress according to the cookbook too. So
I saw you all in plaid shirts.
Yeah, so we have to like go full into it. And I was talking to a friend who is the main girl who starts it, and she was like, I think a lot of people think it's like a content shoot that we're doing.
Because it looks like it.
It looks like it, but it really isn't. It's very much more friend focused and like connection between all of us. Like a lot of them do own their own businesses and are mothers, and so we have a lot in common, and a couple of them have husbands that are doing crazy things like Pace's, and so it's a really good group of people who are actually doing things and making things happen, but then we also share motherhood and, you know, busy husbands and all that good stuff. So it's very much friends first, and then the content is such like a Z item, but it just naturally comes because it's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful.
It's
like
so beautiful.
Whoever is doing it goes all out. Have you gotten to host yet?
I actually co-hosted with her when Phil was like 3 months old. Her name's Lauren Schumacher, in case anyone looks her up. She's the Lauren style on Instagram. She's incredibly talented. I feel like everyone should follow her. But yeah, she co-hosted with me when Phil was a baby.
And which cookbook did you do? We
did a French cookbook, and it was so cute. I feel like I have one brain cell from that time. But she came over early and she like helped me because she helped me curate like the vision of what she had, and then helped me set up and stuff because I was, mid baby
with 3-month-old.
Yeah.
Right? I can't believe you even decided to take that on. That is super adventurous.
Yeah. Well, we have such a beautiful courtyard, and we have vines, and they were blooming and stuff. And I always felt so bad because I was always attending the cookbook club, but never hosting it at my house. So I was like, I've been like in cookbook club for like 3 years, and it's never been at my house. We should do it. So it was as good of a time as any.
I love that. And so a lot of people think of, again, the like Pace's wife thing, and they don't realize that you actually are really smart when it comes to real estate also.
Oh, yeah. I think that actually does hurt my feelings now that you're saying that.
Yeah, because you're super savvy with that. Yeah. But you don't get a lot of credit for it.
True. And in the beginning, I don't think Pace really understood like the difference between, as far as like realtor terms, like a buyer's agent versus a listing agent versus a transaction coordinator. And so he would get up on stage and be like, oh yeah, my wife was a TC. And I'm like, that is like such like the lowest level of stuff that I've actually done in my life. I feel like I really put in my dues with real estate. When he and I met, I was in real estate school, and then I got licensed a couple months later, and I did, the most awful grunt work and learned the industry like truly from like the bottom of the barrel. And so I feel like I know so much that I'm so much more than just a transaction coordinator. I wouldn't even call myself a transaction coordinator or even put that in my like bio or anything. But yeah, I feel like that does actually hurt my feelings a little bit that people don't know that about me.
Do you think you want to do something with that as you're growing out of baby phase?
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like I always tell people, in my opinion, I feel like I've done enough that when I'm ready to come back, I have a shoe-in to my career is still there, because I did so much that I feel like it's there.
Okay, so I love that you're talking about that, and we should take a minute and focus on it, because we've talked on a couple other episodes about how our culture makes it sound like if you choose to be a mom, your life is kind of over.
True.
Or that it's like a negative connotation of like you're giving something up.
Yeah.
And we think of it in absolutes. Like I am giving up my career.
Yeah,
but
like
no one
done.
said you can't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that you can't change to something else. Or
I know.
that something else isn't more amazing after that.
Truly. Yeah. I think what I'm in is just a season of life. And so as tough as, some things like postpartum, babies,
no
back
sleep,
to back each year,
breastfeeding, all of
that stuff, as tough as that is, I always tell myself it's a season of life. And Pace and I have spent the majority of our lives being friends with people who are like 50 and above. I don't know what our deal is, but we just have always been friends with like older couples. And it's been so interesting to form deep, meaningful relationships with these people and realize that they're in a lot of ways starting over, or they're finding themselves.
Yeah, life is not, when you're young, you're like 50 is so old.
No.
Life is over.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I feel like I have so much more life to live. And I think I also have a really good perspective, because I have a 17-year-old son, how fast they grow up, and then it's over, and there is things left to me once they're gone.
Yeah, I love that. And I think a lot of women need to hear that, because it's not talked about enough. Because you feel like, and then they also think of like, oh, my kids are like grown and moved out, and like I'm lost.
Lost, yes. I'm not saying that like when I re-enter things, I mean, I've dabbled here and there. I'm not like 100%. Like my license isn't inactive. I mean, I showed houses a day ago. So I went to a listing appointment yesterday. So I'm not saying I don't do anything. It's just,
it's not everything for you.
And I'm not saying I'm going to like jump back in and I'm not going to feel like, oh, wait, like, you know, things have changed, you know, in a year.
Listen, y'all, I know today's episode is inspiring, but inspiration alone will never carry us to our ultimate goals. That's why I started the Society of Entrepreneurial Women. It's a mastermind for high-performing female investors and entrepreneurs who are living their lives unapologetically. In a world where most people don't get us, or they try to keep us confined in a small box, the Society exists to turn off the brakes and set you free. We have weekly calls covering investing, wealth building, health, relationships, family, and a whole lot more. We have small tribes to hold each other accountable to our goals. We have in-person, ladies-only retreats to disconnect and drive each other towards our dreams. And most importantly, this is a community where you can be unapologetically you. Celebrate your wins, scream your successes from the top of the rooftop, become best friends with women who get you. We're 3 years in, and I can honestly say my best friends today are all from the Society. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
Hey, but speaking of babies,
Sure.
are you going to have any more?
Oh my goodness, this is like the $1 million question. Pace would have 15 kids.
Right.
He comes from a family of 12, and I think he's on the fence of the more the merrier. I come from a family of 2. So like my life, when we go hang out with Jerry and Anne Marie's family, we're just talking about the Nortons. They have 10 kids.
And if you don't know the Nortons, they are like amazing at systems because
Yes.
having 10 kids, you couldn't function if you didn't.
No, not at all. But when we're in their house and there's, you know, someone's chasing somebody, someone's asking for stuff, someone's up on the counters, you know, just kid things. Pace is like sitting there and he's just like happy as a clam, just like so calm. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot. Like, should I like, you know, because when I grew up, it was really quiet. Like, of course, when you only have 2 kids, you're like
Where
polar
did you grow
opposites.
up?
Here.
Oh, wow. You're
Yeah.
from Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm one of the few natives, but
Okay.
yeah, my sister has a completely different personality than me, so we didn't enjoy the same hobbies or interests, and so she was always doing her own thing, I was doing my own thing. We didn't even like the same type of people. We didn't even have mutual friends, and we never even shared boyfriends.
How far apart are you in age?
A year.
Oh, wow.
So we could have, but we're just so different. So my childhood was very quiet and clean and calm, and so
In multiple kids is not that.
No, it's not, and you kind of have to let go, you know, and just
You have to choose what you're letting go of.
yeah.
Our sink is never empty.
Never. Yeah. And what's really funny is Pace had a, you know, sweet little couple that helps him, and they actually came to Montana with us, and the girl said to me one time, you know, our 6-year-old screaming, our 2-year-old screaming, I'm holding the baby, like everything's going on, and she was confused why she like made a comment like, do you want to help the 2-year-old who's crying over like she wanted vanilla wafers or something? Meanwhile, the 6-year-old's just acting like crazy, and the baby actually needs something, and so it's like you have to decide the hierarchy of needs just in any given moment.
Almost like a medical field, right?
Yeah, and you have to kind of tune some of it out because as a mom, you're like attuned to your child's exact frequency, so their cries like feel like it's tearing apart your soul.
Gonna crawl out of your skin.
And so she was like saying the 2-year-old was like, I didn't notice, and I was like,
how could you not
you know,
notice?
I very much am aware of what's going on. I'm just like choosing to handle, you know, the kid who needs it the most, and then I'll address the other. So yeah, you have to let go of things like that, you know, when I had one child, my son who was 17, anything he needed, like there was no division of my attention. So it's just a totally different life.
So does that mean you're having more?
I said absolutely not after Phil was born, but then I keep having these like things like, oh, if I have another girl, I'm gonna name her Pebble, which is what Pace wanted to name Corbin. And if I have another boy, I'm gonna name him Palmer, so then I'll have Phil and Palmer. I mean, there's so much more to this. I just feel like
The door's not closed.
it's not closed, but then I also want to be really cognizant of like my limits. And I was telling Pace, I was like, if we have any more, we're gonna have to start telling the kids no, like to certain things, certain activities, certain extracurriculars.
Yeah, your kids are pretty active.
Very active. Corbin's in 11 classes
Shut
each
up.
week alone.
Holy crap.
This girl has a wide, varied range of interests. And so Monday has started. She has 3 classes a week, but
And Corbin's how old?
6. So then I'm like gonna have to start telling Corbin like, well, you can't. Or in big families, sometimes, you know, it's like, okay, well, this kid is taking dance, so you're all gonna take a dance class, and then we're gonna move on and we'll try something else.
That's what we do. Yep.
Yeah, because you have to.
You have
Otherwise,
to. Everyone's doing
you
kung
can't.
fu.
It's
like, kung fu
logistically
works for
impossible.
everyone.
Yeah. I have a friend of ours who she bought her nanny a car, so they have a nanny car. Because like she has enough kids and they have enough activities that like one has to pick someone up from school, and she's only one person, so
But then your life becomes that. And then
it becomes mom taxi.
And it's not even the part about being a taxi. My husband and I regularly talk about this. It doesn't create a really great family environment.
Yeah.
Because you're all divided all the time.
Yeah.
And you're hardly ever together.
Yes.
And we have this really hard boundary on our family is having dinner together every single night.
I love that. That was my family growing up.
And it's wonderful.
It makes a big difference.
It does.
Especially as they get to be like teenagers, you're just like, it means so much that you can come together and at least spend a little bit of time together each day.
And the idea of being able to take multiple kids to so many different things.
Yeah.
And even though we homeschool, most of those activities are after school hours.
Sure.
So that feeds into like, because you don't just eat dinner, you got to make dinner. And we
Yes.
both cook a ton.
Yeah.
You start cooking like an hour before you're going to
Yeah.
serve, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that means by like 5 o'clock, we're in the kitchen starting dinner.
Yeah.
And so if you're running back and forth, not only
can't.
is your family not together, you're also eating really crappy because
Yeah,
all
you're
your meals are
grabbing
out.
McDonald's on the way home or Chick-fil-A.
And so having those two hard boundaries of we're having dinner at home and everyone's eating healthy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how to have the activities at the level
same
that you're
time.
doing and hold those two like
Yeah.
core things we're sticking to.
Yeah, it's hard. It is definitely hard. And I can see as the littles get older.
Yeah, even if you don't have more.
we'll have to,
Yeah.
we'll just have to cut. And when I said that to Pace, Pace is like, well, I didn't do any extracurriculars growing up, and
Same.
I'm fine. But at the same time, Pace comes from a family of 12, because if his mom said yes to him doing a basketball league, she had to say yes to 11 other kids doing whatever interest, or 11 other kids doing a basketball league. That's 11 classes right there. That's wild. And so I understand that, but then at the same time, sometimes I'm like, I think maybe some of you would have liked the option if you could have. So I don't know. I'm torn between the two. I just want to make sure that I'm able, like, I don't want to just have kids to like collect kids. You know, they're so cute and you're like, oh, I just love having a little baby and stuff. I'm not the best like toddler parent. Like I have a really hard time when my kids are toddlers, just because it's just so chaotic and it's hard on you. It's really, none of it makes sense and there's no reasoning, and it's messy and it's loud, and you know, every night I go to bed, I'm like, am I a bad mom? Just because they're just so out of control, you know? So I'm not the best toddler mom, but I can understand why people keep having like they're so sweet, and
It's like buying a puppy
it's
over
so
and
cute.
over again.
But I want to make sure that I have the capacity personally to nurture them, and like every person's different. Everybody's capacity is different, and mine, you know, I have an autoimmune disease and I'm like, I'm fine right now. But what if I'm not fine in 10 years and then I had, you know, another child or 2 more children and I need to be in bed? You know, I don't know.
Do the pregnancies affect your autoimmune disease?
It actually turns it off while you're pregnant, because your body naturally makes your immune system calm down, because when you're pregnant, it's not you and your body could attack your baby. It makes my immune system chill out. So when I'm
So it's
pregnant,
actually better for you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm pregnant. You have all the pregnant type of things, but like I don't have a lot of the autoimmune things while I'm pregnant, which is kind of nice.
That is nice.
Yeah, it is actually really nice.
That's a positive side
yeah,
effect.
yeah, totally.
Okay.
So who knows? It's a very loaded question. I think for right now, for the next year, like the brakes are definitely on, but you know, nothing permanent has been done. You know, I told Pace, I was like, go get a vasectomy, and he didn't. So, you know, there's nothing permanent yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious about something else, because you and I talked about this another time. When you're going through the like end of pregnancy and you feel like an Oompa Loompa and you've birthed the baby and you still look pregnant, even though you don't have that excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Losing the weight literally takes time.
Forever, yeah.
Like not everybody looks like a model the next day,
No.
like Instagram portrays.
Yeah, I wish me, but no, sadly no.
And again, we're back to this husband in the spotlight and all these women who we know how women can be, no different than men. But, you know, they go to your husband's going to conferences and he's around a lot of women.
Yeah.
How does that affect the way you're feeling about yourself?
You know, I'm human, so it's not the best. You know, we went to, when I was pregnant with Monday, he took me to another version of him in Utah, and we went to his house for like a pool party. And Pace was like, we're going to go to 4th of July parade, and then we'll come back to the hotel and we'll get ready, and then we'll go to the pool party. Well, it turns out we never got ready for the day. So I showed up to these people's house like unshowered, and I'm like 23 weeks pregnant with Monday. And the guy's like, oh yeah, my wife's pregnant too. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. So we go meet her, and turns out we pretty much have the same due date within like days of each other. And she still has abs, and I look like I'm like 6 months pregnant. And so I left that interaction being like, I think in a lot of ways, I don't know if I necessarily feel like horrible about myself. Like I feel more inclined on like the side of like, I don't want to make him look bad, because, you know, there's something to being online where you want, when people see your wife, they want to be like, oh yeah, she deserves to be there. Not like, oh, that must be his wife before he made money. You know, I don't want anyone to be like, oh my God, that's his wife. So,
and no matter, okay, we should stop and acknowledge that no matter how beautiful you are, because it's like no one's questioning that you are absolutely beautiful.
You're so sweet.
That people say those things regardless.
True.
Because even when I was like 36 and, you know, perfectly fit before I started having babies again, they still make comments like, you're not that hot and you're too fat to be doing that. And you're like, bro, I am in such good shape right now. Truly. They still pick on you.
They still do,
regardless of how you look.
100%. I think we get so much hate online. I feel like I don't care. And I don't want to say that to like encourage it to where then the Pace Morby hate club shows up in the comment section of this video, but it doesn't really affect me. I think that what would affect me the most is if Pace was embarrassed to take me somewhere, and I don't think he ever would be. And I don't think that's ever in his.
He praises you. Like, I know you're not there when you're not there. But as a wife, I can see how your husband talks about you when you're not there.
That's so sweet.
And it is amazing. Like, it makes you like Pace even more. Because he praises you and speaks so highly of you when you're not there. Like, that's like marriage goals, right? Most people don't have that. They like complain about their spouses, and he does a really good job like building you up and praising you.
I feel like loving him is easy and being with him is easy. And I'm not saying I'm not saying you could pick a girl off the street and put her in a relationship with him and it would be amazing and easy. I feel like he and I's personalities mesh really well together. And so it's like, I feel like it's easy between us. But
that's a blessing.
I'm sure he would never say it vocally, and he would never make me feel bad. But it's one of those things where, you know, we get on a private jet with Michael Phelps and a very famous version of Pace who's been in the business 20 years longer than us, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, my big, huge National Geographic nursing boobs, and I don't even remember the last time I bleached my teeth, and like, you know, the wives are, you know, just, they look like they stepped out of the pages of a Society magazine, and so I'm like, I'm not allowed to be here.
But forget what they look like. I feel like I don't fit with those wives anyway. Because most of them do not have the business background that you also have. So you're in this weird mix where you don't quite fit with those wives, but you're also not the like full-time entrepreneur.
Right.
And so it's a little bit of a lonely place to be in.
It is. Sometimes I don't feel like I deserve to be in the rooms that I'm in.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Like I'm being allowed to be in there. I have this really funny meme that I like to post every once in a while. It's this old man, and he's got this shirt on that says talentless but connected. And I always joke that that's me. And I have a really self-deprecating humor, so no one like, you know, call the cops on me. Like, I don't need to go to therapy, but you know, I think it's just a funny joke that I am allowed and these opportunities because of, you know, who he is. And so I'm not,
the Bible talks about that. When you get married, you become one. You deserve those opportunities. You put up with Pace is not a robot.
No.
So I am sure there are some negative sides that no one's going to share, and you put up with whatever those are because we're all human and we all have them.
Yeah, we're all human.
Yep. So you have become one in the eyes of God, and both of you deserve both of those things.
Yeah. I just sometimes like some of the conversations that are being had, because it's like I don't have all day to look up tax strategies right now or like whole life insurance or something, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then I'm like, I know I'm not.
Okay, you're being too hard on yourself, because I literally did Wholesale Hotline with them last night. And while
I love Wholesale Hotline, that's my favorite podcast.
Okay, so while y'all have some RV parks, Pace knows nothing about an RV park, and he keeps saying that. Him and I are talking about RV parks, and he's like, I have those, but I don't know any of that stuff. But he's okay with not knowing any of that stuff.
Yeah. And everyone knows, you can't know everything about everything because you know a
and
little
so nobody
bit about...
expects that of you.
True. Yeah, that's true. I never really thought about that. But then again, we hit on that people also don't know that I do anything.
Ladies, it's time to redefine the conference experience with the Society of Entrepreneurial Women Retreats. Step inside a world tailored for women just like you, where you can lead, learn, and unwind in style. Our retreats offer everything from insightful investing sessions to fun activities like salsa dancing, boat cruises, food tours, and so much more, ensuring you come back not just inspired, but truly refreshed. Join a community that celebrates you wholly and supports your every endeavor. Ready for a retreat that changes the game? Visit the link in our show notes and find out how you can be part of this exclusive experience.
What's really funny is we were at this, probably one of the biggest events that I went with Pace to. And I don't love to be in the back room because I don't want to be like, I don't know, I'd rather be out watching. And I was in the back room though. And Pace went on stage with Jamil. And the guy who was organizing the event was back there, and Andy Frisella was back there. So like the 75 Hard guy, if people watching are like, Andy Frisella, that sounds familiar, but who is that? So Andy Frisella flew in on and walked into the back, and he was getting ready to go on after Pace and Jamil. And he's listening here and there, and then Pace is talking, and then he like really tuned into the monitor. And he asked the guy organizing the event, he was like, who is that? And he was like, oh, that's Pace Morby. And he was like, okay. And he was like, what does he do? And he's like, he's in real estate and he's on a TV show on A&E because that's when the show was on. And Andy was like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, well, who's the guy that he's with? Like for Jamil. And the guy running the event was like, oh, I don't know. I think that's like one of his business partners in one of his businesses. And I was like, I'm sitting like 2 feet away from them. And so it's really funny that they knew Pace was on a TV show, which obviously no one needs to watch it to like hire Pace to come and speak at an event. But it was just funny that it was like, if you took 2 seconds to look at the TV show, you'd know that Jamil was on it with him. And you know that I was on it with him too, and I'm sitting right here. So I was just listening to it. It's like they don't even know that I'm Pace's wife, and I'm listening to like an unfiltered conversation. But it's just funny because like it's like I don't want to walk around. I feel like that's almost like a insecurity thing to be like, I'm not just a wife, like just saying it all the time to where people know that I do other things than just being a mom and a wife. But at the same time, it's like it's funny when it happens.
What do you think would make you feel differently about that?
I think that the only way people would actually know is if I was really public about it, and I made.
Do you need people to know to feel that way, or is it some accomplishment you could have, or some validation?
No, not necessarily. I feel like I've hit a lot of my professional goals. Sometimes Pace is like, well, you're not just a realtor, and do you want to just be a realtor? And like, truthfully, yeah, I love the fact that I'm a realtor, and I love the fact that I've hit some really high points in my career already. So, I mean, what better than being less than the top 1% of all the realtors in Arizona and being on a TV show? Like, I don't know what else I could go for that. I mean, maybe having a massive team or a brokerage.
Right, but it goes back to that in American culture, how we don't quite celebrate mamas the way we should.
Sure, yeah.
Because it should be thought of as goals.
Yeah.
That you were able to have this great career and take a pause.
Sure,
and be financially stable enough to stay home and raise your kids during those really important years. That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
That a lot of people would do anything to have.
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree. I feel I'm unapologetic about my choice to stay home with the kids, and I respect other people who don't fully quit, or put things on pause to do it. But I get a lot of weird interactions from people, and I have to remind myself that people's choices, there's emotional undercurrents behind their choices and what they've already done or what they are doing or what their husband's not doing or providing, or where they can't make the same choice that I have, and
their perspective, they don't know all of the details, just like you don't know all of their details.
So I think I'm pretty secure and comfortable in knowing that my experience is mine. And Pace and I had fertility problems. My 17-year-old is not his. They looked alike for a long time, which was so weird, where people were like, "Oh, I didn't realize that you were his mom. I thought he was Pace's." And I'm like, "No, that's my kid." But when he and I decided to have a family, we had fertility problems for years, and we always decided that no matter what was going on, that I would be able to stay at home with them. And that's what we decided together and for me, I'm like really passionate about like the first couple years of their lives. And when Corbin was born, like when we finally got pregnant, it was like the worst business year of his life. And so it was a time where he needed me, and he used to sit there and be like, I need you to show up. And I'm like, I literally can't, like I've got like, I don't even go pee some days. So, and that's when he, branched out and partnered with really good people and made some really good hires to take it outside of just us. So I feel like, any sort of negativity or like undercurrents of like judgment or, oh, you're just at home, you're just getting taken care of and using your husband's credit card and scheduling photo shoots, what a dummy, whatever. I feel very confident in our choice, in our family choice to do what we're doing right now.
So shifting gears a little bit, you have another hobby that I absolutely love.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to thrift stores.
Yeah.
And finding the most adorable things.
Oh, so cute.
So talk to me about that. First of all, what made you decide to do this?
Oh, I think I am very into like interior design and stuff like that. And so I feel like I try to keep a pulse on like what's cool and what's exciting. And I know that like it's like it's like a extension of like the cottagecore thing where everyone kind of wants like this English countryside type of home. And so a lot of like what I think is becoming more popular is like creating, and a friend of mine actually, she works at an amazing design studio here in Scottsdale. She taught me, I guess it all came, Ben was actually with me for a lot of it, but hey, you broke the wall or whatever it is.
The wall?
Is it the fourth wall when you acknowledge that you're being recorded? Yes. Yeah, I broke the fourth wall where I've acknowledged someone off camera, but my favorite guy, Ben, was a part of this, but I really decided I was going to be passionate about something, and I was like, I'm gonna decorate Pace's office in the way, because he films so much content in there.
Yeah.
And I was sick of it. It was like drywall patches and like weird mismatched paint and like decorations from our house that no one wanted that ended up shoved in a corner. And I just would watch, like when he'd have someone come in, it was like they were moving like a plant, and I'm not saying no one comes into the office and moves things around for a perfect background for shots, but I just wanted it to be really nice. And my friend and I, she taught me that like going and curating things from places and just keeping an eye out and going to an antique shop and finding stuff. And so for Pace's office, I was like, okay, well, he's on camera. I found a really cool vintage camera. And then he always wanted to live in Montana. So we sourced like an antique saddle form and like just like some really fun stuff. And it took 2 years, but it became exactly what she said. Like when you're going and you have to make a room for like an Airbnb, you have to decide stuff.
Marshalls and TJ Maxx.
You're unboxing boxes and you're just setting it up, and you have to have the artwork and the pillows and everything. She was like, this will be so much more fulfilling because it'll be like layered and have things that mean stuff to you guys. So then I was like, there's this museum in Mesa, Arizona, where he and I both grew up and spent our childhoods, and you would go to this museum and you'd pan for gold. And so like in the gift shop, I like went and got some like fool's gold, like pyrite, and I put it on his shelf. So like it just became this thing where I could like make something like really specific to him. And I love his office now. So then it became something that I was like, oh, like, this is kind of fun to not just go to a store and buy stuff. So now I'm like I just went and dropped off this 1870 flag to get like framed and stuff, and it's fun, I think.
So are you taking the kids with you when you go to these places?
Yeah, they love it.
Really?
Yeah, they think it's so fun. And I have to try to not walk out with like 95 Beanie Babies that they found in like random booths where I'm like...
Speaking of talking to people not on camera, Carolina's son is obsessed with Beanie Babies.
I know. They're all over
them,
the antique shops, and you're just like, there's just buckets of them, and they're just begging for your kids to walk by and grab a bunch. But yeah, because we were all told Beanie Babies are going to be like the best investment of our lives. So it feels like everyone has a collection in those stores. So...
That's amazing. What do you think is the most unique thing you found in one of these stores?
Oh my gosh, like bedpans. Like one of the places I went to, just like some booth, some vendor just had like a collection of just like antique bedpans, and I was like,
that's not random at
I
all.
don't want that. Why does anyone want that? And like finding like old Playboys and stuff, I think is really, I love seeing that. And I know like probably people are like, ew, get your smut out of here. But I love Playboy, you know. When I was growing up, it was like Girls Next Door and Holly Madison. I love Holly. So I'm like, when I see like a vintage Playboy, I'm like, that's so cool. Like,
I wonder what all those girls are doing now. They were so famous on that TV show.
Oh, I still follow Holly. I love her. They actually have a podcast called Girls Next Level.
Oh.
And yeah.
Meaning all of the 3 girls?
It's just Bridget and Holly.
Okay.
And then I think Kendra's a realtor in California.
Up.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that interesting? Good for them. They all have good lives, and they're all still so beautiful, but I don't have any negative feelings towards Playboy, but I think it's really cool to see the old ones.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, I appreciate you taking the time to talk for us. So for anybody who wants to see more of you posting about cookbook parties and shopping at all of the vintage stores, where can they find you?
You can find me on my Instagram. It's just Laura Morby, or YouTube, Laura Morby. And yeah, I am on TikTok and stuff, but that's more like, can I cuss on this? No.
I probably cut. Everyone decided I wasn't Mormon last night on Wholesale Hotline because I cussed too much.
Yeah, that's okay. Did they have to bleep you out? Well, it's live.
It's live, so they can't. Yeah,
it's live. You know, it's there. Yeah. Well, I was gonna say on TikTok, I SHIT post on TikTok, so it's not. No one wants to follow me on there.
What does that mean?
Like you just post like just total dumb stuff.
That is not what I was imagining.
That's actually what I want to watch.
Like, I literally imagined that we were posting you using the bathroom, because that's what that sounds like to me.
It's just like garbage posting. But like I'll regularly get on there. I'm like, why did I post that? And I'll just like start deleting stuff. So no one should follow me on TikTok.
You post such odd stuff that you're the #1 person that I think of to send that odd, crazy stuff.
Well, I hope you do.
Sometimes
why don't you?
Sometimes, but I mean, I don't want to just blow your feet up.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you get in a good vein where they suggest a lot of that stuff to you. So you should. I love that stuff. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Laura.
it.
This was fun.
It was fun. Thank you.
Remember, authenticity is your superpower. Stay unapologetically yourself, and let's continue embracing our uniqueness together. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.